Hey, I want to talk to you about something called Say Something. And this is something that you can do, and it goes with the reader's response in your thinking as you're reading. But what you do is you work with a partner, and you can either be reading the same book or you can choose something else. So to start out with, I am going to read from this book called Hush by Jacqueline Woodson. I'm going to go ahead and start reading it. I'm going to decide with my partner how many minutes we're going to read. So let's say I say to you, okay, we're going to read for 10 minutes straight, and then or 5 minutes or 2 minutes, let's say for 3 minutes straight, and then after that I'm going to say something about what I'm reading, and this would be the person would have something different. They can read something different. Or you could do Say Something where you're reading the same thing, but you're reading it separately, and then you come back and say something after you decide how many minutes you want to read or how long. Well, in this case, I'm going to read this for about 2 or 3 minutes, and then I'm going to come back with you and I'm going to say something about what I read. Okay? This will help me decide what I want to write in my writer response to the reading. So I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to read for a few minutes. You do the same thing, and we'll come back and have a conversation. We're going to say something about it, anything that comes to our mind. Alright? Reader transaction, reader response. Okay? Okay, I read pages 40 to pages 42, 43 in a few minutes, and I want to say something about what I read. What I'm thinking is, to give you a little background on what I'm reading, this little girl, her father is a policeman, and he has witnessed a shooting by the police, and then they had killed someone by accident, and it wasn't by accident, so her father has to tell, is trying to tell what really happened, what he saw, and so they're having all kind of trouble. So it starts out with her talking about how people are calling on the phone and says if Green says a word, we'll kill him, and she talks about how she didn't want to pick up the phone after that, and her mom would take the phone off the hook because it was ringing off the hook. This is getting to an exciting point in the book, and her sister, who is a cheerleader at school, is she's being her life is being ruined because they say that her father is a snitch, and many of the girls and boys who go to the same school are also, some of them are policemen, and just talking about what her father's going through. So that's what I've read so far. I want to find out more. I want to find out why they had to move. Well, I know why they had to move, but this is just sort of going back to that. So that's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say that I feel bad for the character that she's going through this, and I want to read more, but that's what I remember up to that point. So I can say whatever I'm thinking about it to you, and that's called Say Something, and so we can practice back and forth saying something. And so I'm going to stop, and I'm going to read again, and I want you to stop and read again, and then with a partner talk about what you just read. Decide in 2 or 3 minutes, whatever happens to be, and then come back and talk about it. Alright, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to talk one more time to say something, and then we're going to I was saying before, I went ahead and read a couple more pages, and then it's getting more interest. It's even more interesting than it was before. Basically, what I remember, what I'm reading is the girl's father. There's an inspector that comes to question her father about the shooting and what he saw, and he's saying, "Are you sure you saw it?" I'm not saying they did. I'm not saying they didn't do it. And they had talked about, you know, the consequences if he reported the other 2 policemen, what's going to do to his family, and he keeps going back to the victim who was shot. He was a boy, he had his hands up. They thought it was gang related, but it wasn't. These are just the conversations that they had. And me as a reader, I'm visually seeing this. I'm seeing the boy with his hands up and the police shooting him, whether it was intentional or whatever, I'm going to find out later. But this is interesting. I almost feel like I'm watching a movie. Like I'm watching a movie on the screen in my mind. But I find this very interesting. I want to keep reading. So I said something, and I would like you to do the same thing. To stop after a few pages, talk to somebody. After a few paragraphs, whatever you all decide as readers you want to do, and then say something. In the next video, I'm going to talk to you about how taking that, say something, you bring it into a written response. Now we're reading, responding, we're talking orally, and that's great. And then we can bring it over to reading response. All right? Happy reading. Happy discussing. make that transaction. Okay, now you don't see my face, but you're going to see me write some things down. Now I have to decide what type of reading response do I want to do. Do I want to write a poem in response to what I read? Do I just want to write about what I was thinking in a form of sentences and paragraphs? I could do that too. Do I want to sketch it? Do I want to sketch it out? With speech bubbles, I could do a cartoon of it if I wanted. Do I want to take this and make it into a play? Well, I could. Do I want to, I don't know what's happening over here, but you can't see it that well. Do I want to make it into something else? Like another type of response, do I want to draw something and explain? Those are the things I need to consider, and I'll talk to you in a second. Another thing that I could do with this is I could make it into a sketch. I could sketch to make a sketch or a little play out of it. But I'm going to write a poem. And so I'm going to go ahead and start a poem and decide how I want to write it. It can be free verse, it can be rhyming, it depends. It could be a narrative poem. So I'm just going to start out and just write what I'm thinking. Poor guy doesn't know what to do. If he does this, if he does this, no good. Another thing, no good. Bad news. And I could keep going about what I was thinking about it. I could sketch, I could have him over here, and this is what happened. So he doesn't know what to do. He's seeing them shoot somebody on duty, and that was part of the book in Hush. I guess that's why they call it Hush. And I'll bring the book back over. It's a really good book in case you want to get it. It's by Jacqueline Woodson. And I haven't finished it. I'm still working on it. I was on chapter 5. So there's different ways to respond, to write what I'm thinking, to have that transaction between the text, myself, and then what happens is the reading response comes out in my writing and my thinking and my talking. So that's one way to do it. Thank you. I would like to show you another way to do it. You could have a little sketch, maybe if you wanted to try this out, sort of like a cartoon, and you could sketch it out, the parts that you read, what you remember. However, I mean, this could be a way I have. And this is a little girl, and she's sitting there waiting for the telephone to ring, and when the telephone rings, she gets bad news, so she listens to it. Her mom is upset. And then I'm just going to put a speech bubble. Not again. And her mom says, don't worry. And then we have the next frame, we have the officer coming by. I don't know how to draw that, but the officer comes by. And he says, are you sure, to the father? And the father is right here, and he's sad. He doesn't know what to do. He's saying, I saw it. I can't lie. And over here is left to be determined. But this is part of a way to respond. There's different ways to respond, and it's up to you as a reader to decide how you're going to represent this as a writer. Lots of different ways. So I'm just giving you some of these options, so maybe you want to try them out. So happy reading, happy responding, happy transaction. Remember, the transaction is made when the reader merges their thinking to what's written, and then something new comes out, as we talk about, in the form of writing, in the form of talking, in the form of speaking and listening. Happy reading. Happy reading. Now, we're going to go ahead and try this on our own, to say something, to write something, to think something as you go in reading, so that we have the transaction between you, what you're reading, and then something great comes out. We call it merge thinking. We call it the transaction. I'm going to show you what it looks like if I could sketch it. I'm going to move the camera a little bit so I can get back over here. When we talk about transaction, it's between you, what you're reading, okay, and when you connect, we have a transaction. You're thinking. So, happy reading. Have fun. Happy transaction. Say something, do something. Have fun with reading. Bye-bye.